Hello. Before you proceed, please make sure that you have completed the first module, which is the Introduction to the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System, and the module's exit ticket. If you have not completed these steps, stop the video now, go back and complete those modules before you proceed. Welcome to the second of 3 asynchronous modules designed to prepare you for the implementation of the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. This second module is focused on the observation framework. The module is split into 3 parts. You are now beginning part 1. Before we begin, please make sure you have a copy of the Delaware Teacher Classroom Observation Tool available to you. You can find the tool in the Schoology course. You may want to have a printed copy available to follow along. Please pause the video now and retrieve your copy. You will also want to have access to the graphic organizer to accompany this module. Throughout the module, you will be instructed to pause the video and record your responses to questions and other feedback. So having this graphic organizer will support your participation in the module. If you've not already done so, pause the video to download the graphic organizer now. By the end of this module, you will understand how the observation framework is structured, be able to describe the performance areas and indicators in the observation framework, know how the new observation framework compares to the DPAS-2 rubric, and have a fuller understanding of the 4th performance area, which is focused on student learning. Note that at the end of this webinar, you will not yet be an expert on the framework. Framework calibration will be completed for administrators throughout your 7-day Administrator Institute. This module also does not cover the history of the design of the new system, which was covered in Module 1, or the details of the process, which will be covered in Module 3. Recall the theory of action for the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. The framework that we will explore is what defines excellence. The framework serves as a common language of what good teaching and learning looks like in Delaware. It sets the foundation of expectations and supports all of us, teachers and administrators, to understand and align on what good teaching is and how to develop it. Recall that we are moving from a teaching-focused system with evaluations focused on teacher actions to a learning-focused system with observation, coaching, feedback, and support focused on teacher growth and development and its impact on students. If you need a refresher on the difference between a teaching-focused system and a learning-focused system, please return to Module 1. Let's start our module today with a tour of the framework. On page 2, you find the beginning of the framework. At the top of the page, you see the first of 3 performance areas. Each performance area is accompanied by what is called an essential question. The essential question guides and summarizes what is being assessed in the performance area. Each performance area also includes 4 levels of performance. Level 1 at the left to level 4 at the right. Each performance area also has 3 indicators, which are along the left side of the framework. And each indicator is accompanied by a set of descriptors at each level of performance. Descriptors describe the teacher and student actions and behaviors at that level of performance for each indicator. At the end of the framework, you'll also find core teacher skills. Each performance area is accompanied by a set of core teacher skills. Core teacher skills are not rated. Instead, they are used for coaching and development. Core teacher skills are a list of things that great teachers do to get the outcomes listed in the indicators in the performance area. Pause the video now and take notes on this question. What do you notice about the new observation framework structure? What is different from the DPAS-2 rubric or the rubric used in your district? What is similar? Pause now and note your answers on your graphic organizer. There are 3 performance areas in the Delaware Teacher Classroom Observation Framework. The first performance area is called Learning Environment. The essential question is, to what extent does the classroom environment support all students to learn? Here is where you'll tag evidence related to classroom procedures, behavior management, and access to learning for all students. A strong learning environment is a necessary piece of effective teaching and learning, but it alone is not sufficient. Performance area 2 is called Engagement in Learning. The essential question is, to what extent does the instruction support and engage all students? Performance area 2 is where you'll code evidence related to the learning objective, the sequence of teaching and learning, and pacing and materials. Performance area 2 is really about the teaching and learning happening in the classroom. Success in performance area 2 requires a strong learning environment established and captured in performance area 1. Performance area 3 is called maximizing learning. To what extent do all students retain and apply their learning? This is where all teaching and learning comes together. A solid environment for learning, as captured in performance area 1, and strong content and delivery, captured in performance area 2, leads to student learning. Performance area 3 is where you'll code evidence of that learning, student assignments, discussions, and use of academic vocabulary. There is a 4th performance area in the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System called Student Improvement. This performance area is not included on the framework, but is an integral part of the process designed for the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. We'll cover performance area 4 in more detail at the end of this webinar. Now let's look at the levels of performance on the rubric. It is critical to understand that the expectations in this new framework are much higher than in the DPAS-2 rubric. We expect that more teachers may score more often in levels 2 than level 3 or 4, and that is okay. This framework raises expectations for teachers and includes the implementation of growth and support system to support teachers to meet those expectations. At level 1, a teacher might be attempting instructional strategies, but not finding success. Instruction is not leading to student learning, and students may not be appropriately engaged in the learning environment. At level 2, a teacher may have a plan for instruction, but that plan may fall short in implementation. Instruction may be strong some of the time, but not consistently high level. And students may be quiet and compliant in the lesson, but may not be actively engaged in learning. All of us have room to grow. And again, it is not unexpected that some teachers may start at level 2 in some or all areas. Level 3 describes a classroom where the teacher is consistently meeting expectations. Students are not just compliant with instructions, but are actively engaged in learning. And students are demonstrating their learning through a variety of mechanisms. If all teachers in a school were consistently performing at level 3, that school would see excellent outcomes for all students. Level 3 is our collective goal. This is where we all as professionals strive to be. Our new framework also includes a 4th level. It's important to understand that level 4 is additive. Level 4 describes a classroom where everything in level 3 is also happening. Much like in the DPAS-2 rubric, we do not expect teachers to live at level 4. Level 4 articulates what truly exceptional teaching practice looks like. Now for those core teacher skills. Core teacher skills serve as an example of something that a teacher knows or does to support instruction. Core teacher skills are used for coaching and development. They provide a common language for teachers and leaders across Delaware to discuss growth together. Core teacher skills are connected to the framework. There are so many things that a teacher does day in and day out to deliver learning for their students. The idea of core teacher skills is they are an articulated list of things that teachers do before, during, and after teaching that lead to success on the framework according to the framework language. Core teacher skills are not a list of something that every teacher does in every lesson, every day. Core teacher skills are also not scored or rated. An observer should not expect to see everything on the core teacher skills list in the classroom. Instead, core teacher skills are really meant to serve as common language for coaching and development. Module 3 will provide more details about how core teacher skills will be used. Now, let's get into the framework. We'll start at the beginning with Performance Area 1. Performance Area 1 is not about what students are learning, how they are learning, and/or whether or not they are learning. Performance Area 1 is focused exclusively on the quality of the learning environment and the extent to which it supports all students to access learning. Indicator 1.1 is Structures for Learning. This is the basis of instruction. Structures for learning are the necessary elements every classroom must have in place to ensure students can learn. Take a moment now to read the language in Indicator 1.1. Read across the row from the descriptors in Level 1 to the descriptors in Level 4. Pause the video now to read. As you read, you see the descriptors highlighted and bolded in the framework. The first two descriptors are routines and procedures and behavioral expectations. The framework describes not only that routines and procedures and expectations are in place, but that they are clear, communicated to students, and match to students' needs. Routines, procedures, and behavior expectations allow for the maximization of instructional time, which is the third descriptor in Indicator 1.1. In a high-performing classroom, there is no wasted time, and routines and procedures support students to engage in learning in ways that does not detract from learning. The fourth descriptor, then, is student behavior. Routines, procedures, and maximized instructional time result in students exhibiting appropriate behavior that supports their engagement in learning and does not detract from learning of others. The Indicator 1.1 is very similar to what is included in the DPAS 2 rubric and in other rubrics under classroom environment. Next, we move to Positive Classroom Climate, Indicator 2.2. Again, pause the video and read Indicator 1.2 from Level 1 to Level 4. Indicator 1.2 includes descriptors that describe student interactions as being respectful, and not just about student respect for the teacher, but student respect for each other as well, and teacher respect for the students. Respect can look different in different ages and contexts, but a positive classroom climate is grounded in respect. Also in a positive classroom climate, students listen attentively without distraction. This is because the teacher has set up behavior and procedure expectations that support attentive listening, and students are known and respected by the teacher. Students also take ownership and responsibility over their work. In a positive classroom climate, there is pride in student work, and students share responsibility for work with their classmates. Finally, as the result of a positive classroom climate, students persevere to complete quality work. Students don't give up, even when the work is hard, and are supported to try their best and keep working to learn their content. Similar to the descriptors in Indicator 1.1, Indicator 1.2 is most often included in rubrics under classroom environment. Finally, the last indicator in Performance Area 1 is Indicator 1.3, Equitable Access. Pause the video now and take a minute to read Indicator 1.3 from Level 1 to Level 4. As we examine Indicator 1.3, it is important that we define the term equitable. Equitable access is about making sure all students are able to learn, and that all students, regardless of their needs related to their background knowledge and experiences, language, and ability, are able to engage in lessons. As educators, we know that it is critical that all students, regardless of their background, ability, language, race, gender, ethnicity, have the opportunity to learn. So we infuse equity into everything that we do. In this framework, Indicator 1.3 specifically calls out equity because the learning environment must be characterized by equitable opportunities for all students, regardless of who they are, what they bring to the classroom, or where they come from. Let's examine the descriptors for Indicator 1.3. First, in an equitable classroom, the teacher has high expectations for learning and achievement for all students, regardless of the needs this student brings. And the teacher works to ensure that all students have what they need to meet those expectations. This is more than setting a routine or procedure, or being nice to students. This is about communicating key messages that this work is important. You can do it, and I won't give up on you. The teacher not only holds high expectations for learning and achievement, but provides opportunities for all students to participate in the lesson. The teacher has created a learning environment so all students feel safe and welcome to participate. The teacher also encourages students to share their own interests and perspectives, and considers those interests and perspectives in the planning and delivery of the lesson. Consideration of interests and perspectives goes beyond questions about basketball, because students like basketball. This is actually about the teacher genuinely knowing their students and what is meaningful in their lives. It's also about ensuring and encouraging students to show respect for perspectives and views that are different from their own. Finally, in a classroom defined by equitable access, teachers provide students the opportunity to use supports to be able to participate and meet high expectations. Classroom supports might include displays, visual aids, etc. This goes beyond posters on the wall. It's about the teacher matching their students and what they need to the resources and support they can provide. Let's look at a few teacher strategies for implementing a classroom with equitable access. Take a moment to read the strategies on your screen. These strategies are just a few examples of ways a teacher might engage to support all students to access and engage in the learning. Now turn to the end of your framework to find the core teacher skills for Performance Area 1. Remember, core teacher skills describe the work that teachers do to achieve the levels of performance noted in the framework. This list is not exhaustive. There are many, many things teachers do before, during, and after instruction that contribute to student learning. But core teacher skills aim to articulate some of the key things teachers do and to provide common language around those things. Take a moment to read the core teacher skills for Performance Area 1. Then, read the questions on your screen, and using your graphic organizer, mark your answers to these questions. Pause the video now to complete this exercise. Consider what you learned about Performance Area 1. What concepts from Performance Area 1 are familiar to you? What concepts are new? Pause the video now and take notes on your graphic organizer in response to this question. Now let's move on to Performance Area 2. Remember, Performance Area 1 focused exclusively on the quality of the learning environment to support all students to access the learning. Performance Area 2, Engagement in Learning, focuses on the extent to which instruction actually supports all students to engage and learn. Let's dig in. Let's begin with Indicator 2.1, Objectives for Learning. Pause the video now to read the descriptors in Indicator 2.1. We have all seen objectives written on the board. Each day, an objective might be written that aligns to the lesson. However, really strong objectives for learning go beyond what's simply written on the board. High-quality objectives for learning guide learning experiences, are central to the formative feedback cycle with students, are stated, lived, and worthy, and are aligned to standards. Let's examine the descriptors for Indicator 2.1. First, the framework describes strong learning objectives as aligned to grade level standards and/or student IEP goals and written in student-friendly language. High-quality objectives are not the standard itself, but instead describe what students will know and be able to do, and written in language that the students can refer to throughout their learning. Second, strong objectives are accessible, communicated, and revisited by the teacher and students. Students can access objectives and know where to find them, and the teacher revisits the objective throughout the lesson, so students can check in on their progress. Here are some examples of what it might look or sound like to see objectives revisited throughout a lesson. Strong objectives are also understood by students. Students can clearly articulate what they are learning and why that learning is important. Lastly, high-quality objectives for learning are accompanied by criteria for success. Criteria for success is a key function of objectives for learning. Criteria for success help students know if they are on track to mastering the objective and what else they might have to learn to come to mastery. This new framework will not require teachers and leaders to learn a whole new way to write objectives. Many strong teachers are already creating objectives that meet what is described in these descriptors. However, the new framework prioritizes these descriptors as central to high-quality objectives because, as you'll see, high-quality objectives are central to the rest of Performance Area 2 and the extent to which students can engage in learning. Next is Indicator 2.2, Presentation of Information. Pause the video now to read the descriptors for Indicator 2.2. The first descriptor in Indicator 2.2 is sequencing and pacing. In a high-quality lesson, the sequence and pacing is coherent and aligned to the objective. As students move through learning experiences, they are more likely to be successful in mastering the objective. Second, all learning experiences in the lesson are logically aligned. What do we mean by logically aligned? Here are a few examples. Complex processes are broken down into smaller parts. Experiences increase in level of difficulty. There is continuity between experiences, and guidance is given, and the gradual release of responsibility is matched to the content and the student. Cognitive expectations are provided between each experiences, and strategies are matched to the content and student. The third descriptor in Indicator 2.2 is that misconceptions are anticipated. The teacher anticipates student misconception based on the presentation of information and prior knowledge. The teacher knows what students' prior knowledge is and is able to anticipate common misconceptions based on students' prior knowledge. Another descriptor in Indicator 2.2 is the use of explanatory devices. The teacher uses explanatory devices to bring clarity to the student learning and support clear communication of new information. Here's a set of explanatory devices. This list is not all-inclusive, but includes some examples of explanatory devices used in high-quality classrooms. Finally, high-quality presentation of information includes opportunities for students to activate and summarize what they have learned. This descriptor is where criteria for success become important. Students use the criteria for success for each objective to activate and summarize their learning. The final indicator in Performance Area 2 is Indicator 2.3, Checks for Understanding and Feedback. Pause the video now and read the descriptors for checks for understanding and feedback. The first descriptor in Indicator 1.2 is monitoring progress and adjusting instruction. This describes what we might think of as a traditional check for understanding. At key points in the lesson, the teacher is checking in with students to make sure that they understand and are grasping the content. If students are not understanding, the teacher makes adjustments in the moment using that information from students. Great checks for understanding start with the objective and the criteria for success. Checks for understanding that are aligned to the objective inform reteaching so students can do better. They happen frequently after each learning experience. And they give students information they can use to improve in their learning. Great checks for understanding often include options for students to demonstrate their learning, again, aligned with the criteria for success. This is not just that students, for example, write their answers down in the same way throughout the lesson. Instead, the new framework articulates that students must be given opportunities to demonstrate their understanding in multiple ways. Teachers then use what they learn to give feedback to students, so students know where they are and can track their progress along the criteria for success. That's the fourth descriptor, student self-assessment. Finally, in great lessons, students have opportunities to redo, relearn, or be reassessed. Checks for understanding are not a one and done. Students are given the chance to demonstrate how they are learning in ongoing ways. Now, take a moment to read the core teacher skills for Performance Area 2, Engagement in Learning. Then, read the questions on the screen, pause the video, and record your answers on your graphic organizer. Now that we've reviewed Performance Area 2, what concepts are familiar to you? What concepts are new? Pause the video now and take notes on your response to this question. Now let's move on to the third performance area in the observation framework, maximizing learning. This is the performance area where we focus on the extent to which students maximize and retain their learning. Let's dig in. Let's begin with Indicator 3.1, rigorous assignments. Pause the video to read the descriptors for Indicator 3.1, from Level 1 to Level 4. The Education Trust describes assignments as tasks that integrate content knowledge, skills, and thinking strategies learned in a lesson or unit. Assignments are the artifacts of student understanding. So what are the descriptors for rigorous assignments, Indicator 3.1? We begin with alignment. High-quality assignments are aligned, not just to learning objectives, but to the content and the learner. Strong assignments allow students to demonstrate their learning according to the criteria for success. Strong assignments are also relevant and require student application of content. Students should be working on work that is worthy of their time. Rigorous assignments are also differentiated and supported. Remember our focus on equitable access? Assignments allow students to engage with the content in a way that promotes cognitive challenge aligned to the learner. Finally, assignments support students to apply the content they are learning. These are just some ways that students can be asked to apply the content in an assignment to demonstrate mastery of that content. They might review material, lead discussions, critically analyze information, solve problems, or generate examples. On the screen is a summary of the key aspects of rigorous assignments adapted from the Education Trust. Rigorous assignments are aligned and address major content standards, learning goals. They are cognitively challenging, requiring high levels of cognitive demand and ideally student writing. They are relevant and meaningful to students and their learning, and they are differentiated and supported, and so students are able to engage in the assignment based on their needs. What is the difference between a learning experience articulated in Indicator 2.2 and a rigorous assignment? Learning experiences are more likely to be teacher-directed and include things like demonstration, video, cooperative pairs, and practice. Learning experiences are used to expose and guide students to access new knowledge and to build understanding of each piece of information required to understand the overall objective. Learning experiences include relevance being built into the experience. They consider student interests, background knowledge, and ability. Rigorous assignments are more likely to be done independently. They are used to allow students to apply new knowledge, practice skills, and demonstrate and extend their understanding. Assignments are used to apply all pieces of knowledge related to the objective and include relevance in terms of real-world application. Another way students demonstrate their learning is through questioning and discussion. Pause the video now to read the descriptors in Indicator 3.2, Questioning and Discussion. The first descriptor for questioning and discussion is alignment. Much like assignments, questions must be aligned to the objective, the content, and the learner. This alignment is key. Well-aligned questions can advance student learning and enable students to show mastery. Second, great questioning comes with prompts and wait time. This does not mean that every question must include prompting or many minutes of wait time. It does mean, though, that every question should be supported by prompting and wait time, as is appropriate and necessary for the students in the class. Third, students are supporting their answers with evidence. Students should be able to explain their thinking and responses to questions. In a highly performing lesson, students also generate questions themselves and participate in robust class discussions. Students are asking each other and the teacher questions, and the teacher has set up strong structures for learning that enable high-quality class discussions. Now, what is the difference between a check for understanding in Indicator 2.3 and questioning and discussion in Indicator 3.2? The purpose of a check for understanding is to check that knowledge has been obtained by the students and identify where it might be necessary to reteach. Checks for understanding also might focus students on the objective and procedure in the classroom. They may be used to review previous learning or clarify new learning. Checks for understanding also allow for consolidation and review, and to provide feedback to indicate student progress toward a goal. Questioning and discussion is used to develop student thinking power and deepen their understanding. It's used to encourage elaboration on a topic and to invite creative thinking. Questioning and discussion help students become better metacognitive strategic learners, make students' thinking visible, and increase student interaction with each other. Checks for understanding and questioning and discussion are not sequential. In fact, they often go hand in hand, with checks for understanding leading to more deeper questioning and discussion. The third indicator in Performance Area 3 is academic language and vocabulary. Pause the video now to read the descriptors for Indicator 3.3. Let's begin by defining academic language and vocabulary. This graphic shows the 3 tiers of vocabulary. Tiers 2 and Tier 3 are considered academic language and vocabulary. Take a moment to review the definitions of Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 vocabulary. In other words, academic language and vocabulary are words that are used across many areas of content and subject-specific words. They are words that have special meaning within a field of study or subject. Academic vocabulary and language are not words commonly used or words that are frequently encountered in informal conversation. What are the descriptors for Indicator 3.3, academic language and vocabulary? First, academic language is modeled by the teacher. The teacher must use the academic language and vocabulary accurately and appropriately. Second, the language is explicitly taught by the teacher. In most cases, we can't just expect students will know academic language. We must teach it explicitly. Finally, students then use the academic language. In a strong classroom, students use academic language and vocabulary to explain and elaborate on their thinking. Academic language and vocabulary is new to being in our framework as a separate idea. It is critical for a classroom where students are doing work to prepare them to meet high standards and excel over time. Just as before, take a moment to read the core teacher skills for Performance Area 3, and then note your responses to these questions. Pause the video now to complete this exercise. Now that you understand Performance Area 3, what concepts are familiar to you? What concepts are new? Pause the video now to note your answers to these questions on your graphic organizer. Now it's your turn to give the framework a tryout. In Schoology, you will find an exercise called evidence sorting. In this exercise, you will be given a sample piece of evidence from a classroom observation. Your job is to identify the best indicator that matches that piece of evidence. We know you don't have any context. We're asking you just to choose the indicator to which you think the evidence most closely aligns. The goal of this exercise is for you to practice using the framework to sort evidence. Complete the exercise and then tune in to part 2 of this module.